Alright, so here we have this map. This map is existing in the Unit 11 folder. All you do is have to open it, and I picked this image because it has a contrastal value between gray, black, and white. It's got these white bits and elements, and yeah, let's take an example, brick. Brick is darker elements with white grout. So it's a little bit more difficult to portray brick at first because we have to almost hand paint the grout lines in or invert the grout lines in some nature. So that's why I chose this as your starting introduction to shaders. The first thing I'm going to do here is show you that we can steal away color. I'm going to just duplicate this layer, hide that other layer, go here, and we're going to go to colors, hue saturation, and let's try that again. There we go. So I'm going to take this and desaturate it, stealing away color. Then we're going to go into colors and steal away some of the tones and tints. So let's go to not threshold, that's a little bit ridiculous. How about levels? So on this curve right here, I can tell you that this curve has a little bit of meaning for me in the fact that on this side I can single out blacks, and on this side I can single out whites. So let me illustrate this by dragging all of these triangles to this side of the curve. Okay, I have singled out blacks. Now if I drag them over to this side, I can single out whites. As long as you know that and how that works and where it is in the curve and what the curve means. Now when it first starts out in the curve, let's say I want just the richest blacks. I can move it here, and because of this curve change, I can capture the richest blacks only. Well, maybe I want just a little higher. But to really illustrate spectral change, I'm going to choose right about here. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, in Photoshop, we can hand paint on the alpha. Okay? In Gimp, you can't do that. That's impossible. I wish it was possible, but it's impossible. So what I'm going to do is make a new layer and put it at the very bottom here. And I have to use this new map to cut away at this map just to illustrate onto the alpha. So if you're really serious about developing maps, I would highly suggest you get Photoshop. Okay, it's probably the only application, that isn't near. We can't free it out. There's no doubt about it. There is no real program out there that is open source enough to be Photoshop, and we use it like every day when it comes to texturing. So it's probably the one application you should spend money on just to get. Okay, select. Drag this out a little bit. Select by color. I use my mouse here. There we go. And I'm going to choose this black. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is go to the background layer here, turn that on, turn this off, and hit delete. Oh wait, let's duplicate the layer first because that'll ruin it. So there we go. Let's go to this and delete. Alright. Now, essentially that should be going to the alpha information. And if I uncheck this eye, you can see that now there is alpha information there. And I can't zoom in on it or see it in any way, but it is there. And that's what we need, is that alpha information. Okay, now this is hurting my head, so let's go to none. So, supposedly the color is still there in some manner. And let me kind of show you how that looks. So now I should be able to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this in my folder on my desktop in my Unity workflow under Game, under Assets, and I'm going to make a new material called, or a new folder called Shaders. And I'm going to name this Block Color Map Spec. Now, here this map right here, this is actually what is on the alpha. Everywhere I see white is going to be shiny, and everything I see is black is going to be dull. So let's illustrate this in the Unity game engine. Okay, let's go over here so we can play around. Create other, and I'm going to just put a plane out here. In this plane, I'm going to make a new material. So in here, here's my shaders. So I'm just going to create a material. And this material is going to have this block spectral. And you can see the color information is still there, but since it does have an alpha channel, that is lost on Gimp. And that's the hardest thing to grasp right there, is the fact that there is value here, but we can't see it. Alright, let's go back to Unity. So this object right here, what I'm going to do is add that new material by clicking and dragging it over, and voila, there it is. And then here, I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to choose Spectral. And then drag a light over to it. So this light is kind of strong. I think I want a new light just for this object. Then I'll just get it close to it. Alright, so as if I take this light across the surface, you'll see that blacks stay very black no matter how close I get the light. And then whites are shiny. So this is a spectral or gloss map. Very cool stuff, right? Yeah. Now if you go into it on the spectral, you can choose the spectral color and you can choose how shiny it is. So if I go like this, I can tone that down, and now it'll use bits of gray as its stopgap. Okay. Now if I choose a spectral color, let's say I choose absolute white, you can see that the shine or gloss point is white. And if I choose like a mid-tone gray, you can see that's toned down quite a bit. So that's how we can control the shininess and the gloss point of things. Now, this little thing, this A, indicates it's run by alpha information. So you'll see that there's a million shaders in here. Well, not really a million, but there's quite a few. And like Parallax Specular, you can see that it's ran by 3 maps. There's a normal map, a height map, and it's indicated with an A, and a gloss map. And the gloss map is illustrated with an A. In this fact, we have gloss, but we have no normal map, and we have no height map. So now that we know how to make a gloss map, which is a spectral map, we can go on with parallax mapping and normal mapping. We already know normal mapping pretty good. Now, there's several terms I'm throwing out here. Just know that if I call something a gloss map and a spectral map, they are the same thing, depending on what engine you're using and depending on what program you're using. And then there's parallax and displacement, which is also pretty much the same depending upon what software you're using and what engine you're using. That's what makes mapping so confusing, is the fact that the terminology really isn't there yet as far as a definitive, this is a spectral map, this is what we're calling it. Then you get other artists or developers that go, no, this is a gloss map. There's also things called detail maps, and detail maps are actually bump maps. So I'll get into it as we go, but for right now, this is the spectral map.